In a cheerful little bakery at the edge of a quiet village lived a fluffy brown bear cub named Cubby. His fur was soft like velvet, and his round belly wobbled when he laughed. Cubby's favorite place in the whole world was the bakery kitchen, where the air always smelled of vanilla and cinnamon, and where trays of warm cupcakes lined the counters like tiny treasures. Every evening, when the sun dipped low and the lanterns in the village began to glow, Cubby would sit on a wooden stool by the window and watch the bakers frost cupcakes with swirls of creamy icing. His eyes sparkled with delight at the rainbow sprinkles, the little sugar stars, and the fluffy dollops of whipped cream that decorated each one. Cubby had a special wish in his heart. He dreamed of tasting the perfect cupcake. Not just any cupcake, but one so magical that it could carry him straight into the sweetest dreams. He didn't know what it would look like or how it would taste, only that he would know it when he found it. That night, as the bakers turned off the ovens and the village grew quiet, Cubby climbed into his cozy bed. He pulled his blanket of patchwork squares up to his chin and hugged his little pillow tight. The moonlight spilled through his window, brushing across the shelves where jars of sprinkles glimmered faintly like tiny stars. Cubby yawned a big bear cub yawn, stretching his paws wide, and whispered, "Maybe tonight I'll dream of my cupcake." As his eyes began to close, he thought he heard the faintest sound of bells jingling in the distance, like sugar crystals tumbling in a jar. His whiskers twitched, and his paws curled happily as he drifted into slumber, the scent of warm vanilla still floating in the air. Cubby's whiskers twitched as he sank deeper into sleep, and suddenly the soft patchwork quilt of his little bed seemed to transform beneath him. The squares stretched into fields of color, each patch becoming a hill made of spongy cake. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer in his cozy room. He was standing in a land that smelled like sugar and vanilla, glowing under a sky the color of strawberry cream. The ground beneath his paws was soft and springy, like freshly baked cupcakes without their frosting. As he walked, his feet sank gently into the cake, bouncing him back up with each step. "It's like walking on marshmallows," he whispered, giggling at the little crumbs that sparkled like glitter when they floated into the air. Ahead of him stretched rolling hills, each one topped with swirls of frosting that gleamed in pastel colors: lavender, mint, sky blue, and peach. Rivers of melted chocolate curved through the valleys, flowing slowly, their surfaces glossy and smooth. Tiny sugar crystals floated on top, clinking against each other like bells whenever the current nudged them. Cubby's round eyes widened as he padded toward the nearest hill. He placed his paw on the frosting and gasped softly. It was cool, smooth, and fluffy, like clouds. Without thinking, he scooped a bit onto his paw and licked it. The taste was creamy vanilla with just the faintest sparkle of lemon. He let out a happy little squeak and clapped his paws together. This really is cupcake land. As he wandered further, he discovered trees that grew with trunks of candy canes and branches dripping with gumdrop fruits. Cupcakes sprouted from the ground like mushrooms, each one different from the next. Some had swirls of rainbow icing, others were topped with cherries that glowed like lanterns, and a few even had little sugar stars that twinkled faintly, like they were borrowed from the night sky. Cubby bent down to sniff one topped with lavender frosting and nearly jumped when the cupcake wiggled. With a soft pop, it opened like a flower, revealing a tiny cupcake sprite inside. The sprite was no bigger than Cubby's paw, with wings dusted in sugar powder and a smile as sweet as honey. "Welcome, Cubby," it chimed, its voice ringing like silver bells. Cubby blinked in surprise. You know my name?" The sprite nodded, sprinkling sugar dust as it fluttered its wings. "Of course. This is the land of cupcake dreams. Every cub who wishes for the perfect cupcake finds their way here." Cubby's heart swelled with joy. "Then maybe tonight is the night I'll find mine." The sprite laughed softly and pointed toward the horizon, where a path of golden sprinkles glittered across the cake hills. "Follow the sprinkle trail. It will lead you to what you seek." Cubby thanked the sprite, who twirled once in the air before settling back into its cupcake flower. With a determined little bounce, he set off along the sprinkle trail. Each golden sprinkle he stepped on made a soft ding, like tiny bells announcing his journey. Along the way, he passed rivers of caramel that flowed into little pools shaped like teacups, their steam smelling of cinnamon and nutmeg. He saw frosting clouds drifting low, dropping sprinkles like rain that pattered gently against the cake hills. A rainbow arched overhead, not made of light but of candy ribbons, twisting in colors so bright they glowed against the creamy sky. Cubby's paws tingled with excitement. He could feel it in his heart. His cupcake dream was waiting just ahead, and the trail of sprinkles was guiding him closer with every bounce. He licked a bit of chocolate drizzle from his paw, sighed happily, and whispered to himself, "This might be the yummiest dream ever." Cubby bounced along the sprinkle trail, each golden step chiming like a tiny bell beneath his paws. His round belly wobbled with every hop, but he didn't mind. This dreamland felt too magical, too delicious, for him to slow down. As he climbed over a frosting hill, he spotted movement in the distance, and his little bear heart beat faster with curiosity. At first it looked like a puff of whipped cream rolling across the cake meadow. But as it came closer, Cubby saw that it had eyes as round as sugar pearls and tiny arms made of marshmallow fluff. It squeaked happily when it saw him. "Hello, Cubby," it called, bouncing high into the air before landing softly with a plop. Cubby clapped his paws together. You're a marshmallow puff." The creature giggled, sounding like the crackle of sugar crystals. "Yes. And I'm fluffy. Would you like company on your sprinkle trail?" Cubby nodded eagerly. "Of course. I'd love a friend." The marshmallow puff hopped beside him, leaving sticky sweet paw prints that glittered for a moment before disappearing. As they went along, more curious little beings joined. From the chocolate river came sprinkle critters, tiny round creatures with rainbow sprinkles for fur. They wiggled happily and made soft tink-tink sounds when they rolled. One of them hopped into Cubby's paw, leaving behind a faint sparkle of sugar before bouncing back down to the ground. Then, above them, a flock of frosting birds appeared. Their wings looked like swirls of whipped cream, with tails trailing ribbons of pastel icing. They fluttered down, circling Cubby and Fluffy, leaving little drops of frosting in their wake. When one landed gently on Cubby's shoulder, it cooed like a dove but smelled faintly of vanilla. Cubby giggled, reaching up to stroke its creamy feathers. "Everyone here is so kind," Cubby said with a wide smile, his eyes shining. Fluffy nodded, bouncing cheerfully. "That's because Cupcake Land is made of sweetness, inside and out. The more kindness you bring, the more magic you'll see." As they followed the trail, the cupcake sprites popped out of their sugar flowers to wave at them. The sprinkle critters formed little bridges across tiny streams of caramel so Cubby and Fluffy could cross safely. The frosting birds sang gentle songs, their voices blending into soft harmonies that made the air feel like a lullaby. The path led them into a cupcake forest. Each tree was a giant cupcake with a paper wrapper for a trunk and frosting branches that draped downward like weeping willows. Cherries glowed like lanterns on the tips of the branches, lighting the way. Cubby and Fluffy paused beneath one tree, and a sprinkle critter hopped up, nudging a cherry until it dropped into Cubby's paws. He took a nibble and sighed dreamily. "It tastes like honey and sunshine," he said. The frosting birds fluttered to the tops of the cupcake trees, calling down to guide them along the winding trail. The marshmallow puff hummed happily, bouncing in rhythm with the chiming sprinkles underfoot. Cubby felt surrounded, not just by sweets, but by friendship. As they traveled deeper, the forest opened up into a clearing. There, the golden sprinkle trail glittered brighter than ever, as though it was leading them to something extraordinary. Fluffy's eyes sparkled. "We're getting close to the heart of Cupcake Dreams," he whispered. Cubby hugged his belly, excitement bubbling inside him. "Then maybe I'll find my perfect cupcake tonight." The sprinkle critters tinkled joyfully, the frosting birds sang louder, and even the trees seemed to lean closer, their frosting branches swaying. Cubby felt warmth spread through his chest, not just from the sweetness all around, but from the kindness of his new friends. He took another step forward, the sprinkles beneath his paw ringing like a chime of promise. Cubby's little paws tingled with anticipation as the sprinkle trail grew brighter underfoot, the golden sparkles rising higher with each step until it felt like he was walking on a river of starlight made of sugar. Fluffy the marshmallow puff bounced at his side, leaving behind little sticky sparkles that twinkled like fireflies. The sprinkle critters rolled happily ahead, forming a jingling parade, while the frosting birds soared above in graceful arcs, their creamy tails trailing like ribbons in the twilight pink sky. The forest of cupcake trees slowly thinned, and the air began to glow with a pearly light. Ahead, towering above the frosting hills, was the most magnificent sight Cubby had ever seen. A castle rose from the heart of Cupcake Land, its walls made of sugar glass that sparkled like diamonds, its turrets frosted in swirls of pastel icing, and its tallest spire topped with a glowing cherry so bright it shone like a moon. "The Cupcake Castle," Fluffy whispered reverently, his marshmallow eyes wide. "The place where the sweetest dreams are baked." Cubby gasped, his paws pressed to his cheeks. "It's even more magical than I imagined." The sprinkle trail carried them straight to the castle gates, which were made of chocolate curls woven together, their tips dripping with caramel. As they approached, the gates creaked open all by themselves, releasing the most heavenly scent, warm vanilla, spiced cinnamon, melted chocolate, and a hint of strawberry sugar. The smell was so soothing that Cubby's eyelids fluttered, and he let out a big, happy sigh. "It smells like bedtime cookies," he murmured, wobbling on his feet. Inside the gates, the courtyard sparkled with sugar crystal tiles that chimed like bells when stepped upon. Cupcake sprites flitted around, their sugar dust wings scattering light across the walls like tiny lanterns. They greeted Cubby with soft bows and kind smiles, as though they had been expecting him all along. "Welcome, little dreamer," one sprite chimed. "The castle has been waiting for you." The frosting birds fluttered to the highest balcony, perching on icing railings as if preparing to sing. The sprinkle critters rolled merrily through the courtyard, their tinkling sounds echoing like wind chimes. Fluffy hopped closer to Cubby and whispered, "Only the kindest dreamers are brought here. This means you're close to finding your cupcake." Cubby's round eyes grew even wider. "The perfect cupcake?" he asked in awe. Fluffy nodded. "Yes, the one baked just for you, the cupcake that carries the flavor of your happiest heart." They passed through tall sugar glass doors into the grand hall. The ceiling arched high above, dripping with icicle-like candy canes, while chandeliers of spun sugar glowed with a golden light. Along the walls stood enormous shelves filled with cupcakes of every shape and color, each one shimmering faintly as though infused with a dream. Cubby patted slowly, his mouth open in wonder. There were cupcakes topped with rainbow swirls that looked like sunsets, ones frosted with sparkles that reminded him of fireflies, and even ones so tall their icing swirled up like towers. Each cupcake seemed alive, glowing faintly, humming quietly, like they were all singing their own little lullabies. At the end of the hall stood a grand table carved from chocolate marble, its surface polished smooth. And in the very center, resting on a tiny golden plate, was a cupcake unlike any Cubby had ever seen. Its cake shimmered with soft brown warmth, its frosting swirled in gentle lavender and cream, and on top sat a single sugar star that pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat of light. Cubby's paws trembled as he stepped closer. The cupcake seemed to glow brighter as he approached, as if recognizing him. Fluffy hopped up onto the table, his marshmallow face smiling. "This is the Cupcake of Dreams," he said softly. "It is baked by the magic of kindness, flavored with joy, and frosted with the sparkle of your own wishes." The frosting birds began to sing softly from the balcony, their voices weaving into a lullaby that filled the hall. The sprinkle critters tinkled their way to the base of the table, forming a ring as though celebrating this moment. The cupcake sprites hovered in the air, scattering sugar dust that fell like starlight around Cubby. His eyes glistened. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "Is it really mine?" The sugar star atop the cupcake blinked, once, twice, like a gentle nod. Cubby placed his paw gently against the golden plate, his heart thumping with joy. He could feel warmth radiating from the cupcake, a warmth that didn't just fill his tummy, it filled his whole heart. Cubby stood before the glowing cupcake, his paws resting gently on the golden plate as if he were holding a treasure too precious to disturb. The sugar star on top pulsed again, sending out ripples of light that brushed across his fur like soft moonbeams. His little bear heart thumped so loudly he thought perhaps everyone in the castle could hear it. Fluffy the marshmallow puff bounced closer, his sugary face shining. "Go on, Cubby," he whispered. "The Cupcake of Dreams is waiting for you. Its flavor is made for your heart alone." The sprinkle critters jingled in a circle at Cubby's feet, like a tiny band of bells encouraging him onward. The frosting birds cooed softly from the balcony, their voices like a lullaby floating down to him. And the cupcake sprites hovered in the air, wings scattering sugar dust that glowed as it fell. The whole hall seemed to hush, every sound leaning toward Cubby, urging him to take the first bite. Cubby licked his lips, his paws trembling slightly. "Here goes," he murmured, his voice a mix of excitement and wonder. He lifted the cupcake gently, its glow warming his paws, and brought it to his nose. The scent washed over him in waves, vanilla cream, a hint of honey, soft lavender, and the cozy sweetness of home. He sighed happily, his round belly rumbling. Closing his eyes, Cubby took a careful bite. The moment the cupcake touched his tongue, his whole body tingled. It wasn't just sweet, it was perfect. The cake was soft and warm, melting in his mouth like sunshine. The frosting was creamy and cool, with flavors that changed with every taste, vanilla like his favorite bakery, honey like summer mornings, lavender like his grandmother's garden, and even the sparkle of lemon like laughter on a bright day. It was as though every happy moment he had ever known was baked inside that single bite. Cubby let out the deepest sigh, his little shoulders melting. "It tastes like love," he whispered dreamily. Fluffy clapped his marshmallow paws together. The sprinkle critters chimed joyfully, bouncing in delight, and the frosting birds swirled in a graceful dance above. But Cubby hardly noticed. He was lost in the warm glow filling his chest, a glow that spread slowly from his tummy to his paws, to the tips of his ears, until his whole body felt wrapped in sugar silk comfort. He took another bite, slower this time, savoring every crumb. His eyes drooped, heavy and calm. "I think this is the coziest thing I've ever tasted," he murmured, his words soft and slurred like someone already drifting into a nap. As he finished the last bite, the sugar star atop the cupcake floated gently into the air. It hovered above him, spinning slowly, then drifted downward until it touched his forehead. With a warm glow, it sank into his fur, leaving behind a mark of light shaped like a star. Cubby gasped softly, but instead of surprise, he felt peace. The star seemed to whisper silently, "Your dreams will always be sweet." Cubby swayed slightly, his paws curling against the golden plate. His belly was warm, his eyelids heavy. He yawned, a long, contented bear cub yawn that made the cupcake sprites giggle. "I don't think I can stay awake much longer," he admitted with a sleepy smile. Fluffy bounced up beside him and patted his paw. "That's exactly what the Cupcake of Dreams is meant to do," he said. "It's guiding you into the yummiest, calmest sleep." The cupcake sprite swooped down, sprinkling him with a gentle dusting of sugar starlight, while the frosting birds sang softer and softer, their voices like a cradle rocking the air. The sprinkle critters formed a circle around him, chiming so faintly it was almost like the ticking of a clock. Cubby lowered himself onto the sugar crystal tiles, his head resting on his paws. The glow from his tummy pulsed gently, matching the soft rhythm of the castle's heart. His breaths grew slower, each one carrying the sweet scent of vanilla. The hall seemed to grow quieter and dimmer, as though it too was preparing to fall asleep with him. His last words before drifting off were whispered into the hush of the castle, "Thank you, for the perfect cupcake." The grand hall of the Cupcake Castle glowed faintly, the chandeliers of spun sugar dimming into a golden hush. Cubby curled on the sugar crystal floor, his belly round and warm, his star mark glowing softly on his forehead. Each of his breaths was deep and even, like little sighs of contentment, carrying the sweet scent of vanilla and honey into the quiet night. Fluffy the marshmallow puff settled beside him, soft and pillowy, offering his squishy arms like an extra cushion. The sprinkle critters, no longer bouncing in excitement, rolled gently around Cubby in a protective circle, their jingling now a delicate lullaby, like distant chimes in the wind. Above them, the frosting birds tucked their wings close and lowered their heads, their cooing softening until it melted into the silence of sleep. The cupcake sprites, hovering with their sugar dust wings, flew one last gentle loop over Cubby. They sprinkled the faintest trail of starlight sugar that landed on his fur like a blanket, covering him in the coziest shimmer. The sugar melted into warmth, wrapping him from head to paw like the patchwork quilt from his little bakery bed back home. The castle itself seemed to breathe along with him. The chocolate marble table hummed faintly, a low and steady rhythm. The sugar glass walls glistened softly as if candlelight flickered behind them. Even the tall frosted towers leaned ever so slightly inward, as though tucking the little bear in beneath their sugary embrace. Cubby's whiskers twitched once as he dreamed. In his cupcake dream, he wandered through fields of spongy cake with rivers of caramel, but now everything was slower, softer. The sprinkle trail was no longer bright gold but muted, a pathway of silver crumbs leading into a sky painted with whipped cream clouds. He walked lazily, not searching anymore, but simply floating along as though his paws were lighter than air. The sugar star inside his fur glowed faintly, guiding his dream. It whispered into his heart, "Your dreams will always be kind. Your nights will always be sweet. You are safe, you are loved, and you will always be wrapped in warmth." Fluffy whispered from beside him, though his voice was hardly more than a sleepy hum. "Good night, Cubby. Good night, little dreamer." His marshmallow body sagged, melting into the sugar floor as he joined Cubby in slumber. The sprinkle critters curled into tiny balls, their colors dimming until they looked like rainbow pebbles sprinkled across the floor. The frosting birds leaned against each other on the balcony rail, feathers puffed, breathing softly. The cupcake sprites folded their sugar wings and rested inside sugar flowers that closed gently, their glow fading into twinkles. The castle was now as quiet as a cradle rocking in the dark. Outside the gates, the frosting hills glowed faintly under a sky painted with cream and silver, while rivers of chocolate slowed to the gentlest trickles, their soft sound like a lullaby running through the land. Cupcake Land itself was asleep, holding Cubby in its sugary heart. Back in the village bakery, the real Cubby Bear lay beneath his patchwork quilt, paws tucked under his chin, the faintest smile on his muzzle. His whiskers twitched with dreams, and his belly rose and fell in calm rhythm. The faint scent of vanilla drifted from the shelves, where jars of sprinkles shimmered faintly in the moonlight. The star mark of the cupcake dream wasn't visible here, but in his heart, it glowed as bright as ever. And as the night deepened, the whole world seemed to sing the same lullaby, "You are safe. You are warm. You are loved. And tonight, your dreams are as sweet as cupcakes." The bakery hushed. The castle hushed. The land hushed. And Cubby Bear drifted deeper into the softest, yummiest, most peaceful sleep, the kind of sleep that carries little dreamers into morning with joy still glowing in their hearts.